Britain is holding a general election today with Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer on course for a landslide victory. Opinion polls indicate that Starmer could win a House of Commons majority of more than 200. That would beat Sir Tony Blair's 179 majority back in 1997 and give Labour its first general election victory since 2005. Watching developments for us in the UK is our correspondent Stuart Smith, who joins us now for a sense of how things are faring. And Stuart, of course, polls have already opened at this hour. Help us locate where you are and, as a start, what you're seeing.
Yeah, I'm at the constituency of the Labour Party leader, Keir Starmer, and behind me at the ballot booths, people will have a chance to vote for him or 11 other candidates. What they're not expected to vote for, especially here in this constituency in central London, is the Conservative Party, which looks on track for a record defeat. Now, this is quite a change because the Labour Party at the last general election managed to only achieved its worst loss since 1935, and now it's on track for potentially a record majority. So a lot has changed in those 5 years, with firstly, the Conservative Party, after many years in power, 14 years in power, looking on its last legs, according to most voters in the United Kingdom. And conversely, the Labour Party, under new leadership, with Keir Starmer at the helm instead of Jeremy Corbyn, seemingly more appetising to voters who might be encouraged to vote for them as the party to get rid of the Conservatives, which have, especially in the last few years, really seen their popularity decrease, with a host of issues, from a lack of change seemingly on tackling illegal immigration, concerns about the cost of living crisis here in the UK, and also the state of the National Health Service, which over the last decade at least has seen increased waiting times and has also seen fewer resources put to it. So all of these issues, voters weighing up over the course of Thursday, with a result expected on Friday.
Yeah, we're seeing reports that Rishi Sunak has already cast his ballot. I think it was in North Yorkshire. So much being said, of course, about his tenure as the Prime Minister and that decision, of course, to call a snaps election, supposedly coming to bite him in the back.
Yeah, the choice of a summer election was always a mystery and a surprise to a lot of the public, the media, and even those within his own party. He went against, reportedly, the advice of his own election advisor, because at this point, the Conservative Party doesn't have as much to say about potential successes as it might otherwise if it had waited till autumn. For example, one of the flagship policies of the Conservatives, announced just in the last few months, was the Rwanda policy to return illegal immigrants to Rwanda for processing. Now, by the time this election has got underway, not one single immigrant has gone to Rwanda, something therefore the Conservatives cannot claim on the doorstep as a win. Seemingly the economic situation hasn't improved as much as it might have by autumn, so the Conservatives are struggling to find credit for any sense of improving the economy. And similarly, waiting times in the NHS, the National Health Service, still causing a headache for any Conservative campaigner trying to convince people to vote for the Tories once again. So all of that meaning that the Conservatives are struggling, though in the last week, it seems, they have managed to narrow the distance behind Labour slightly, on 17%, only 17 percentage points behind Labour rather than the 20% we've seen through most of this election campaign. But it's still a massive gap, which is why polls predict there will be a significant Labour majority announced by the end of Friday.
Is it too soon to start speaking about ways in which this might or might not change the UK's foreign policy? We know that a number of issues, of course, have been hotly debated in that country, and there's real concerns, of course, around the standing of the UK after these elections, depending, of course, on which way the country swings.
Yeah, we already know a little bit about what Keir Starmer would do if he is elected Prime Minister when it comes to foreign policy. If we take a look to Ukraine and Russia, something the UK has been heavily invested in, supporting Ukraine against the invasion of Russia, that's likely to continue. Keir Starmer has largely been supportive of the Conservative stance on foreign policy, and especially when it comes to Ukraine. And in fact, if he's elected, he'll very quickly be off to Washington for a NATO leaders summit, where he's expected to reaffirm the UK's support for Ukraine in the face of Russia. When it comes to other important players in the world, China, Keir Starmer says he's hoping to reset relations with China, which, although initially under the Conservative government was meant to be improving, in the last few years a real coldness has developed between the UK and China on that front. So Keir Starmer hoping to try to reanalyse the relationship and see if anything should change. And then another big one for the UK, especially after the European Union, is to what degree the country should be close to Brussels. Keir Starmer's not by no means talking about rejoining the European Union. That's not something voters largely are supportive of here in the UK, but there will be some minor tweaks perhaps, such as on the import of agricultural products, on mutually recognising qualifications and other matters less significant that might mean a closer relationship with the European Union to a slightly greater extent.
All right, the winds of change certainly blowing there in the UK. Stuart Smith, for now, thanks very much indeed. Appreciate you helping us connect the dots from here in Johannesburg. Stuart Smith is our correspondent, live to us from London in the United Kingdom.